Chapter 4. The Map. I've kept notes of various chats and chat rooms on the web over the years. I no longer go to these chat rooms for the reason I found they do not want to hear anything new, just established theology and doctrine. If it doesn't fit their knothole, it's rejected or ignored. Yet still I gain what I now will share with you who welcome fresh words and new perspectives. I will take off on short quotes given to me on a variety of subject matter. It was Peter who said we have a more sure word of prophecy which we should pay attention to as the light that shines in a dark place until the day dawns and the day star rises in our hearts. 2 Peter 1:19. Many of these chat rooms felt threatened if you dared to announce that what you were given, via your typed or spoken word, was from the Lord at that moment and not your words. So I learned not to say or type that. Was it? Yes. I've come to know myself well enough over the years to know the difference. You can see the reasoning behind getting to know yourself, as many advocate. The reason being, if you were ever to hear from the Lord, you would know the different thought patterns. Well, enough of these thoughts which I had addressed in the previous chapters. Let me begin with the first entry. Question. Do you still use a map to go to a place you have been to over and over again? Once you've learned via the use of a map, somewhere in time you will not need the map because it's now in your memory. You have what they call an inward guidance. Now you can use the map to aid the first timer until the living God works for them. Interesting, this matter of seeing the Bible as a map. I have traveled so many times to Florida that now I need no map to get there. I remember the first time I attempted to travel from southern New Jersey down Route 95. I got to Baltimore, Maryland, and made a wrong turn, ending up going west on the Baltimore Beltway. Well, I corrected this, only to end up later missing another turn, which put me in downtown Washington. Needless to say, I learned from this experience. Well, a few years later, I took another trip to Florida. By then, I'd forgotten the way, yet remembered the two mistakes I would not do again. So I used the map when I approached these two errors in the past. Again, years later, I took a third trip to Florida. I took along the map, but this time found I didn't need it. I said all this to get to a point. In the early stages of spiritual growth, to use the Bible as a guide was correct. As Peter says, it's a light in a dark place or unknown territory. But somewhere the until must come, and the dawning of the day should arise in our hearts. Subtitle: GPS System. Today, more and more vehicles are coming equipped with GPS system, a guidance system, built in the car. You don't need to try and unfold and refold those old paper maps, remember? It again is only there should you ever need it. Once you get a sense of direction, it seems just like just another expensive piece of equipment added to an already expensive car. Well, thinking in the carnal sense of this, the GPS system is new to us. Something that wasn't there in the past. Kind of a mystery thing only thought of in science fiction movies. Yet here we are, seeing and experiencing what once was science fiction, the mystery now being revealed in our experience of the GPS system. Well, now to the spiritual side of this. You can see where I'm going with this, correct? Question. How do you know this? Maybe there is another reader of this chapter of my book who doesn't know where I'm going with this. Why do you know and he or she doesn't? I know of people who have a GPS system in their car and never used it. They go on trips and still use a paper map. Why? They, for one, are computer illiterate. Anything that smacks with computer graphics and so forth scares them from using it. You might think, boy, that's stupid. What a waste of money. Well, that's kind of correct. But understand this, they might say, the car came with the GPS system. We didn't ask for it. It just came with it. We would have paid for it whether we wanted to use it or not. We chose not to use it. It's too complicated. Christ accomplished something whether you know it or not. It's all in all of us, for it claims that he has lit everyone who has come into the world. John 1:9. Also, it states that eternity has been placed in everyone, and if you don't know this, you won't be able to figure out the beginning from the end. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11. We have in us all a guidance system that lights the way and points the direction. It came with the body. In our sense, or our case, someone else has paid the price to assure that you were given this inward system. As a matter of fact, it's always been there. Kind of like a mystery. Something there yet not revealed until now. It was placed in you from the foundations of the world. The seal of approval and a written guarantee that it would work if you would use it was placed on it at the factory, sealed with the blood of the one who put it there. Now you can ignore it and not use it. You can wing it and use your carnal sense of direction or figure it out the hard way. It's not as complicated as you think. Just 2 buttons to initiate it. A and Z. The A button is your acknowledging what has been placed in you. The Z button sets the zone, the direction that you need. There's only one direction to go, so that's a no-brainer. Once you have done this, you initiate just one more button, the Ask button. This you can push anytime and for any reason while heading in the one direction you have already initiated. Have a nice trip. For those who might be asking, well, where are we going? The only real place, one Jesus said he has prepared for us in John 14:2. Chapter 5. Truth in the Inward Parts. Psalm 51:6. Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. In the New Testament, the Apostle Paul called this the inward man. Romans 7:22 and 2 Corinthians 4:16. Note, this inward man is not the conscious or subconscious mind. It is a totally different mind, which is called the mind of Christ. We see this truth in the remainder of Psalm 51:6. In the hidden part, wisdom is revealed. Paul later in his writings reveals this as the mystery, Christ in you, the mind of Christ. 2 Corinthians 2:16, Philippians 2:5, and 1 Peter 4:1. We know that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, acknowledging him, and not leaning unto our own understanding. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Jesus, though being a son, followed this method. Though he could reason and express the flesh, he walked only in the mindset of the Spirit, hearing from the Father. He demanded, as I have mentioned before in my opening chapters, that those around him to accuse him of sin, doing anything independent from this method. He said many times, the words I speak aren't my words but my Father's. Though we can reason and express the weaknesses of our flesh, we too are called to follow the same method. Walking in the leading of the Spirit, waiting on the Spirit for righteousness, hearing from Christ in us, subjecting every self-elevated thought unto Christ. 2 Corinthians 10:5, 2 Corinthians 3:5, and Galatians 6:3. Hearing and following this Christ. While we now live in the flesh, we live by the faith, Christ, hearing from the Father to relay to us something that would override our flesh views and opinions, thus directing our path. This is what we are expected to experience. Paul prayed that we should receive such a spirit of wisdom and revelation, beyond conforming to our present world view of any matter. As many that are led by the Spirit, these are the sons of God. You can test the Spirit to see if this is the Holy Spirit which Jesus followed by a simple question. Ask the Spirit, did this Christ, the Son of God, come in a human body, and was this human who referred to himself as the Son of Man, was this man Jesus, the Son of God, God of very God? If you notice, every major cult will deny this, thus depriving Jesus of deity. You also will notice that in the pagan world, evil has attempted to mimic what we call the Trinity. Those in the occult world use this to back their claim that the Trinity is pagan. I will not go into this further in this book, leaving it for another work I've been working on for years. You can't imagine how important this is in light of our ever having the chance of hearing God's voice has become just another scarecrow in God's cornfield.